Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a tool that mimics the Stewart McDonald fret kisser. Alright, and it's going to be super cheap. All you really need is sandpaper and a prism. This one's kind of a broken one. And if you're wondering, well, where the hell do I get a prism? I put a link down below to Walmart. You can get two, and I'd recommend getting two because there's another useful thing which I will explain in a future video. So, what is a fret kisser? Well, a fret kisser is something that allows you to file down one fret at a time. Okay, so let's say you've gone through your fretboard with your fret rocker to find the high frets, and you've found which ones are high. Typically I'll mark them off with a little Sharpie, and a general rule of thumb is, for me anyway, is if there's 5 or more, give or take, I may resort to a sanding beam. If there's less, I will 100% do one fret at a time. Now the reason for that is you really don't want to resort to a sanding beam like this, where you're sanding all of the frets at the same time, because you're going to take off way more material than you need to, and it's unnecessary, and especially for a guitar like this, because this is a really old Les Paul and the frets are already pretty low. It looks like it's had a leveling job already. So if I take off any more material, I'm just gonna have to take these frets right out, and that's a whole nother job. Anyway, so to deal with one fret at a time, typically I would take a 3-corner file and go across the frets so that you're not going too low, which does the job. But the problem with that is, if you're not skilled with this 3-corner file, if you haven't spent hours doing that, then chances are you're going to screw it up. And I've seen lots of other YouTube videos, showing, oh, this is how you do it like this, make it look really easy. But unless you know what you're doing, it's not a good idea. If you make that fret slightly lower, even one pass too many, then that means you're going to have to level all the frets from here to the bridge. Okay, so this is why I came up with this, and this sort of just popped in my head of how to do this. I've been sort of drooling over the fret kisser tool for a while, thinking, well, I obviously don't need it because I use this, but it is super handy. And then finally this just popped in my head as to how to do this. So now I'll show you how to make it. So first, take your prism, and it doesn't have to be a prism actually. You can use anything that's flat, but what I like about the prism is that it has 3 sides. So if you're making something that just has one side, I would use 320 grit sandpaper. Now, since there's 3 sides on this broken prism here, I'm going to use 3 different types of sandpaper just because why the hell not? So I'm going to use 220. Now that I would only use if you want to take off a lot of material, the 320 and then the 400. So you're also going to need an X-Acto knife or scissors, whatever you want. So again, super easy. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a little strip of sandpaper that matches the shape of the prism or whatever you're using. Okay, try to hold it steady here. So you can't really see it, but whatever, you probably know how to cut stuff. So cut that side. Okay, so now you've got a piece of sandpaper that is the same size as the prism. Now this is sort of the idea that just popped in my head, is how to make it so that it's exactly level. And the super easy way to do that is cut 3 sections of sandpaper. Okay, so I'm not even going to make it super accurate, I'm just going to eye it up. Okay, there's one. Now what you do want to keep in mind for this middle section is you don't want to make it so wide that it's going to cover more than 1 fret when you get down to, say, like the 20th fret or so. So make it thinner than that. I'm just guessing. Okay, so now you got your 3 pieces of sandpaper. You're going to flip one over. Ta-da! Genius. There's your fret kisser. Okay, now next you're going to take your tape, or if you have double-sided tape, it's kind of easier, but I'm still living on a remote island with no hardware store right now, so this is what I'm doing. Okay, so I got that on there. Oops, my hands are all sweaty actually, so this is making it a little bit tricky. Yeah, I had to pause and dry off my prism because my hands are too sweaty for the tape to stick. So we'll try this again, and I'll try not to touch it with my sweaty hands. Okay, so yeah, you want to kind of line it up on the edge there. You know, make it so that it's nice and anally accurate. Okay, rip that off. Hopefully sticks this time. Okay, that looks like it's going to stick. Now just press it down there. Okay, so, and again, if you have double-sided tape, then way easier. But this works. I'm going to stick some glue on there. Okay, now I'm going to put the middle one down first. Should be using gloves because I hate getting this stuff on my hands all the time, but not going to bother as usual. Okay, so put that on there. I probably put a bit too much glue on because you actually don't want any glue coming out there because that'll affect the levelness of it. Now, it's not super tight to the edge there, but that's okay. I'll just cut it off afterwards. Okay, so stick that down there and maybe go play guitar for a minute and then come back. Takes a minute or so for this to dry, but it really just depends on how distracted you get. So another thing I was going to mention is if you don't have a good feel for which sandpaper is which, you might want to write down which one you put on each side. Like this one's 220, this one's 420, 400 I mean. Freudian slip there. Okay, so you want to cut off the excess. I mean, you might want to, you don't have to. Okay. Cut that off. Maybe cut off that bit of tape just to make it look nice. And then, oops. And then there you have your fret kisser tool. Now it doesn't look very pretty, as I'm sure the StewMac version would, but let me show you how it works. All right, so before you start filing away with this thing, you want to make sure that you're not filing a fret that's not seated properly. So I'll explain that briefly here. I found an example here. So this fret right here, okay, it's high, but what happens when I put a little bit of pressure on that fret rocker? It's no longer rocking. So that tells me that the fret, when you put the fret rocker on it, it goes down. And then when you take the fret rocker off, which, like when you're playing, it's high again. So in order to fix that, first step is hammer it down with a brass hammer. And if it still doesn't go down, your options are either take the whole fret right out, which if you're not a repair person, you don't have frets laying around, you're probably not going to do that. The next option is gluing it. And that's a topic for another video. I'll put a link down below. But if that is the case, if you press down on it and it doesn't rock, whereas when you lightly press it and it rocks, that means it's not seated properly, and do not file it yet. All right, so I found one here that is high, and when I press down on it, it still rocks. Okay, it wasn't a very good demonstration of the rocking, but I know that it is. So, so now, since I know that that's seated, I can use this. Okay, so this one's not very high, so I'm just going to forget about the 220, and I'm going to use the 320. Okay, now this is why it's good to use a little marker, because I actually forgot what fret it is. It's this one. So yeah, a good trick for that is just put a little Sharpie on there and it'll come right off with this. So now you're placing this sandpaper on the fret, and I like to go in a little circular motion here. Okay, and you go in a circular motion, check it. Okay, you can see materials coming off, but very little. Like you're not taking off much here. And the good thing about this is that as soon as it takes off enough, it's going to stop sanding it. So you basically know when it's good. I'm just doing a little section here. You can do the whole fret if you want, but now you can see you can cut some marks there from the sandpaper, which is why I have the 400 here, because that'll take the marks out. Now you can see I'm going this way, which I actually prefer to do, because if you think about which way you're to get marks out anyway, when you're bending your strings, which way are you going? Are you going this way or are you going this way? Right, so you can get a nice shine there, and you can see that 400 took care of most of those marks. You know, if you really want to get super intense with it, you can take either some micro mesh, which stuff like this. It's this is like not the proper one that I would use, but this is just one 3600 grit. Now I would start with something lower than that and work my way up if I want to make this, you know, see my face in this fret here. But if you don't want to go get some micro mesh from like a fancy woodworking store, you can also use one of these emery boards, which you can get at any pharmacy. And these work great because they actually have, this one here anyway has numbers on it. There's 3, there's 1, and there's 2. So it basically, you can go in stages. All right. So this one, I'm not even going to bother rounding it off. I mean, it depends on how much you take off, right? Like if you take off a lot of material, this was just barely high, so I'm not going to round it off. I hardly took off any material. But yeah, I'm just going to take this. There's 3, and I might as well do the whole fret while I'm at it here. Now this will shine it up really nicely. You can see the difference that it's made already. I think I would, realistically, I wouldn't do it this way. I would take the sandpaper to this side and take it to the whole fretboard once I'm done, but this is just sort of a demonstration as what you can do with this emery board here. So, and then this is the 2. And the good thing about this is you really don't even have to worry about like scuffing up the fretboard. It's, you know, I'm touching the fretboard there. I'm not even bothering marking it off. And there's some scratches there that I would use sandpaper for that, but this is just to show you. I'll just focus on the middle here, get the middle shined up for you. So yeah, this is like a $2 thing you can buy at the Shoppers Drug Mart or any pharmacy. Maybe that's a Canadian thing, I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, so you can see that fret is nice and shined up. Let me shine a light on there. See if that, there, look at that. You can see compared to the other ones, the reflection, it's nice and shiny. So when you bend on that fret, and obviously I'm going to go through the whole fretboard and, you know, shine the whole thing up, but just as a demonstration, that took, you know, less than 10 minutes to make. And the great thing about it is you don't have to worry about going too far. So there you have it, your very own fret kisser file. It's ridiculously easy to make, cheap, and it actually does a better job than the 3-corner file that I've been using. So I've already switched to using this. And yeah, let me know how it works out for you. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you think of this and whether you want to see more videos. Bye for now.